first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to podcast number 77. We've had 77 of these weather podcasts, the First Alert Weather Podcast. I want to welcome Camilla Ortiz.
Hello, Mark.
How you doing?
Good.
Good, that's good. And Katie Zuniga, how are you, Katie?
Woohoo, still waking up, but I'm here.
Yeah,
Same with me. Yeah, we worked a late shift. That happens. And you know who's missing? Jeff. He's gone.
Where's
Jeffy?
Jeffy?
Oh, you know, he sent me a text yesterday. He said, I'll be flying in just a few minutes. So then when we were texting with two other people, I said, Jeff is busy. He's flying. He's taking lessons again today because he's becoming I don't know if he's becoming would you say he's becoming a pilot? He's learning to fly.
Pilot. He's getting his private pilot license.
License, yeah.
Yes.
License, not lessons, license, yeah.
And he said, nope, I'm on a regular plane headed somewhere. So he's got kind of a long weekend, a very long weekend. So he's not going to be joining us this evening or this morning or whenever you're listening to this. Anyway, episode 77. So we should have fun. I've got the fire going here. It was kind of a cool morning. Temperatures down in the 30s. And, that's just normal. We've had so many warm mornings this fall so far. So we've kind of got our outline right there, folks. We're going to talk about several things this week. Rainy weather. It rained a lot last weekend. Yeah, we'll cover those numbers. First Alert Weather Day recap. I don't know. Slow weather pattern ahead. Kind of quiet, at least for now. We've got a ski season approaching. This is a time of the year. I forget, do you two ever, or have you ever in the past skied or snowboard?
Yes. Yep.
You both have. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is that time of the year when the excitement ramps up, waiting for snow. Maybe people have their brand new skis. They're waxing the boards. My son does that out in the shop. So we'll take a look at that. And then the weather term of the week. Hey, folks, bonus. We have not one, but two weather terms of the week. What do you think about that?
Oh,
We're going
party
crazy
time.
without Jeff.
Pretty exciting. Are we going to get by without Jeff? I don't know. We're going to try. All right.
We're
So
find out.
let me hide this. Let's go to the rain. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody got any thoughts on this? Looks wet, doesn't it?
Jeez.
I love it.
That was Halloween. Yeah, Katie, you were out for Halloween. It was dry.
Yes,
We
it was
expected the
chilly, but
rain.
it was dry.
It was dry. And then here comes the rain. The first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and
It's that Saturday,
seventh.
Sunday, Monday. That's just
So
awesome.
wet. Yeah.
really wet. And so we ended up so far for the month. It's dry today, this morning. If you're listening to this in the afternoon, of course, it starts raining, we think 3, 4, 5 p.m. Not a ton of rain, but it should rain. And then we've had 4 inches of rain for that first week of the month. In typical November, I remember typical is an average of 30 years. All right. In typical November, we'd have an inch or so. But last November, look how wet last November was. It was 2.98 inches of rain. So
we only have an inch and a half to go to hit a normal November number, right? Isn't it about 5.5?
There
Wow.
it is. In fact, you asked,
There
I
it is.
deliver.
There you
I got all
go.
the graphics ready to go. You like those leaves? That's what it looks like outside right now
Beautiful.
with those leaves. Yeah,
Oh, the fall color this year has been mind-blowing.
it has.
It's been beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a spot where I drive down, kind of down the hill, and it seems like they're more, the big leaf maples are kind of like these yellow leaves on the graphic there.
Yeah.
Just like bright yellow, especially if the sun shines through them. And it's only for about a week each year, but yeah, it's really bright. And Highway 26 coming through the tunnel, a lot of you viewers have probably noticed coming through the tunnel and going up through Sylvan or the other direction, the bright yellow maples up against the dark green Douglas firs, really pretty. You're right.
Yeah. So
and
good
I have
this
a
year.
tree in my front yard. I honestly don't know what kind of tree it is exactly, but it felt like we woke up one day, it was green, and we woke up one day and all of a sudden it looked like that. Like it wasn't like a gradual turn. It just
Really?
turned on just like that. We walked out and we were like, wait, where'd that come from? It just, boom, it was done. Ready to drop
really
its leaves.
nice. Nice stuff. And it was delayed.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm embarrassed to say 2 weeks ago when I had that across the bottom of the 7-day. That was my idea that said, hey, peak colors in Portland area, typically the third week of October. And that is true, but I was about 2 weeks off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay.
It happens. Okay, look at these numbers. Second wettest November start.
1984.
2023. So we've got 3.94. Yeah, you're right. 5.45 inches is that typical November number. Of course, some November's a lot more. 2006.
What was it that you said to me last night when we were talking about this? And I'm going to be honest here. I was half listening because I was working on something.
What? You weren't fully engaged in my conversation?
Let's be honest, Katie. We're usually only half listening to Mark when he's talking.
Come on.
It had something to do with, we were talking about the first week and all that rain that we got. And then you said something about it's not likely. And that's all I remember. It was not likely that we'll have another week like that, or not likely. Do you remember when you were talking about that? We were looking at the potential for rain with the next system and it not being much.
Oh,
right.
Do you remember what that comment was?
I think I know where I was headed. I mean, there were many thoughts in my head at that time or at any time, which causes trouble. But I think what I said was, well, that goes right with this graphic. It's almost like we coordinated this, but we did not. So you look at those top 5 rainfall years, the first week of the month. And I went back, and I think this is just before I talked to you, Katie. I looked at each of those years, and the other 4 years here were all way above normal once we got to the end of the month. I think 1980, 80, 84, 83, they all had like 6, 8, or 9 inches of rain at the end of the month. Wow. So well above average. And then 2006, of course, was the biggie. That one ended up with about a foot of rain. Was that our wettest November ever? I think it was. Or it was one of the wettest.
And for those that are just listening, the numbers that we're looking at here, so 1983 had just a little more than 3 inches. 1984 had 3.1. 1980 had 3.2. This year we're at 3.94. And then 2006 was 6.5 inches. A typical November's 5.5.
I tend to forget. We're sitting here looking at the graphics. A lot of you are listening. Yeah. In fact, I listen on the way to work just to, it's not a narcissistic thing. I just listened to see how the podcast sounded, how our product sounded. And so I sometimes forget, but thanks for describing that, Katie. That was good. I think I have another graphic that goes with this. Oh, this one. There we go. All right. So
look at that.
Here's a map, folks. What we're seeing is a map which shows a bunch of rainfall totals for that first week from Kelso all the way down to Salem. Kelso about 4 inches, Salem 3.5 inches. You know what's interesting in the valleys here? The numbers are pretty uniform, weren't they? A lot of times we get more diversity in numbers, but it looks like everybody in the valleys was between 3.5 and 4.5 inches of rain.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see. Having lived here and grown up here, I never paid attention to the totals. And so now that I'm looking at all these things, seeing what areas where the temperature variations are, who gets more rain and things like that, to me, it's just fascinating to start playing it together in my head and looking at where I am now. Like a couple days ago, Nora was saying she was driving into work and it was sunny behind her and then cloudy in front of her. And I think the hill that I'm on in the Westland area, I think we have a bit of a rain shadow effect when everything is really low, because on my side of the hill, over on the other side of, over in that area, it's like it was sunny. But then as soon as I went down the freeway to 205 or to I-5, it was all cloudy and rainy, and I had to use my windshield wipers. And so it was just interesting to see those microclimates in action, just right in here, like places that are more than a mile or 2 miles apart. It was crazy.
And you see that anywhere in elevation gets more rain typically. We talked about this last week during the big, when we talked about the 50 years of Portland rainfall stats, metro area rainfall. Any hills get a little bit wetter. And you see the Coast Range and the coast, Cannon Beach over 6 inches during that first week. Sandy, almost 7 inches. Corbett, 6.5 inches. And then we talked about this one last week. Remember this? Was it you, Camilla, or was it Katie? Only one of you was there.
Yeah, you said you were like sheep something, sheep heaven, sheep.
Careful. There's a lot of SHs going on here. Yes,
Sheep Canyon.
Sheep Canyon. What there is in there, I didn't put this one on Swift Creek. There's a Sheep Canyon, Swift Creek. These are snowtail sites run by the USGS, but it's Conservation Resource, NRCS. That's it. And for snowpack. But they help with rain as well. And June Lake, always a really wet place. So this, folks, shows you why we have a temperate rainforest on the West Coast. Really wet stuff. What you're seeing there, folks, is Sheep Canyon on the southwest slopes of Mount Hood. Mount St. Helens, 10.9 inches of rain. And June Lake, 13.3 inches. So really really wet. So
Awesome.
we'll talk about, in a moment, once I get my other graphics going here, we'll talk about the drier weather that we're seeing and will see coming up. But let's talk about First Alert Weather Day, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling well during that time. I saw the chatter kind of going through our group text, but I want you guys to explain to me what the setup was and why you did this and then where it went, because I kind of missed this whole shenanigan.
Yeah. So here's the deal. So we use First Alert Weather Days now. We hadn't had one since way back during the heat wave in August. So we use these very sparingly when we say, hey, tomorrow's going to be a First Alert Weather Day. And we did this on Sunday for really late in the day Sunday and into Monday because we saw, just in general, First Alert Weather Days, it's to grab your attention to say, hey, this is something a little bit different. This may disrupt your life. Now, when it's a serious First Alert Weather Day, like a snowstorm or if we had a huge flood, or huge windstorm, we say, hey, this could be dangerous or deadly. But this one, it was pretty clear. What we said is, and I'll show you in a few moments here, but we said, hey, we've got the usual showers and sun breaks pattern, but there's enough lifting. We were seeing very unstable air, lots of lightning offshore. It appeared that this could be the setup this time of the year in the fall, where we get not only downpours with some hail or thunder, but we also might see a funnel cloud, maybe a weak tornado. We've seen those just back in early October, about a month ago, we saw one in the center. Or I think more likely, what I thought would be more likely, I should say, water spouts offshore. And the Weather Service was saying the same thing. We were all the meteorologists around, we were seeing this. Kind of a side note, it was going to be rainy. We'd had all the rain. That's not why we had a First Alert Weather Day up. And the wind was not going to be that strong. We said, this was a graphic I showed in my weather blog post on Sunday. Breezy south wind gusts 25 to 35. During the daytime on Monday. So it was pretty clear cut. Let me do just one more here. That was the graphic we showed. And then specifically, we made it very clear here. What you're seeing here, folks, is just something I put in my blog in bold. I'm just going to read it. So I said, quote, so the big message here is that there's absolutely no need to freak out, comma, get anxious, comma, or change your plans. Then in caps, but you should be paying extra close attention to the weather the next 24 hours or so. Make sure you get warnings on your phone. So my point was just pay a little extra attention. So I think we made that pretty clear, not only on digital, but on air, right? Camilla, you were on that evening.
Yeah, I think that was fair to say. Like you said, the ingredients were there. The setup was there to get something a little bit more exciting. But, the fact that we didn't, I think it was still good to give people the heads up. Imagine if you're outside, doing a picnic with your family and all of a sudden there's a funnel cloud or something that pops up, you would want to know. So, but we did see, so I went on air Sunday night, would have been kind of the onset, of all of this. And there was quite a bit of lightning on the radar, like you mentioned, offshore. A lot of it was not pushing inland, but it was lighting up over the Pacific Ocean. So it was kind of fun to watch that. And I remember on the Shiloh Inns camera in Seaside, lots of flashing happening in the distance. So, we just didn't get a ton of action inland.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it would be better. I feel like we're pretty cautious. We don't try and, sound alarms when they're not needed. But I would rather of us had said, hey, just pay attention rather than not said anything at all. And then something happened. To me, I figure that's the lesser of two evils is just pay attention. But no, it's there. Yeah. That whole taco ingredient thing.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And I was thinking that we did have, for the record, there was one water spout. One sad, actually, it was not a sad water spout, but it was also 300 miles away on the southern Oregon coast, a little bit out of our viewing area. So I have no guilt with that one. I feel that it was a good call, and to be honest, since we're all friends here on the podcast, right? We were kind of covering our butts a little bit too. I just thought, you know what? I don't want to not have a First Alert Weather Day and have a tornado show up somewhere in Vancouver, even if it's a big one. Like, hey, it was no biggie. I think it's all about the communication. We were very clear with our newsroom. Don't blow this up. This is not a big storm. So,
yeah.
All right. So I'm fine with that. We'll see when we get another First Alert Weather Day. I sure don't see one coming up because it looks very quiet, folks, in the next week or so.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
One other thought with that.
Yep.
Because I think at one point we were talking about this in the Weather Center. Can you explain why we tend to get the right setup when we have that strong southerly flow for tornadoes and those sorts of things? Because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, behind these fronts is we have a cool and unstable air mass come in. We've got the scattered showers, so there's a lot of lifting there. So specifically in the valley, and I suppose along the coastline too, as a low pressure approaches, moves by, we see the wind turn southerly in the valley and also southerly along the coast. But overhead, the wind is a little more westerly. So if you can imagine, I don't have anything here I could have had a graphic for that, but I don't. But southerly in the valley, if air is rising, if it's one direction in the valley, but overhead it's another direction, there'd be kind of a twisting motion introduced. And so that you get that twist in the atmosphere, a little rotation. And then terrain can do it as well. We've talked about this on the podcast before, that there are theories that the West Hills introduce a little extra roll as the air goes over them and heads towards Clark County, kind of the lowlands along the Columbia. So that may be why we tend to see a, quote, tornado alley in Clark County,
Vancouver,
in the flatlands.
Careful. You can't say tornado alley. Come on.
Oh,
especially
he did on air.
Especially to somebody from Nebraska. Yeah.
Get out of here with that.
Yeah.
He said that when we had the one tornado, and then when that tornado warning went up, like the next day or a couple days later, we had a graphic where he showed, our tornado season and where our tornado alley actually is. So we talked about it.
That's
flatlands
so
of Clark
cute.
County. Yeah,
I just want to hug you guys here in the Pacific Northwest. Oh, and then the other thing I'll add, I think it was Sunday night, we had an adorable, very excited viewer call the newsroom and very excitedly report that he saw some lightning close to his house. And the fact that people call into newsrooms to report lightning here is I just want to squeeze you. It's so cute.
So that's how I feel about snow. That's how I feel about snow. Okay,
yep.
Because I lived in the Sierra Nevadas at Donner Summit, and so when we get like a dusting of snow and schools closed down for the week, I'm like, oh, you guys.
I know, right? Yeah. And people are sending in pictures of the little dusting on their patio, and you're like, oh, people love it. It's great though. I get it because it's exciting, so it's all good too.
Because it's not normal here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So all right, so just to compare the rain that we had with that big 2006 rain that you saw, the wettest first week of November we've ever seen, brings back the memories for the old folks like me. This is what we're looking at here is a graphic of maximum 24-hour rainfall in the first week of November in 2006. And Portland had 2.5 inches of rain in one day, Corvallis 3.5 inches, and then look at those mountain totals. This was a classic Pineapple Express atmospheric river very early in the season, about the earliest we ever see them. Welch's 5 inches in one day. The Mount Hood test site, bottom of the Poochie Lift, all rain, 5.5 inches in one day. And look at Tillamook, 4.3 inches. June Lake, 15 inches in a day.
Dang.
I think I've got something to go with that one. Hang on. This one, Lee's Camp in the Coast Range. That's Highway 6 as you go over the Coast Range and head down towards Tillamook. You're heading over there to get your cheese or your ice cream, right? Lee's Camp, 14.3 inches. I think that's still the state record for 24-hour rainfall. That's in one day, folks. So that caused flooding on the Wilson River, and that was the highest flood on record. So that was a huge amount of water coming down the Wilson River. So that caused quite a bit of flooding. And right here are the totals for that week. November, I guess it would be 7 days, November 2nd through the 8th in 2006. And those blue areas in the Cascades, 15 inches or more of rain in a week. And you see a few, remember I'm a little colorblind. Is that kind of a pinkish color? The 20 inches?
reddish magenta. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, purple. You're talking about purple, and then there's the red, which is 25 inches.
Well, therein lies our problem there, because we are talking about different things because we see different things.
Oh.
Communication issues. So let's just say that the lowest color there that is kind of a reddish, more of a reddish sort of thing, 25 inches. There were spots in the Coast Range, North Cascades of Oregon, South Cascades of Washington that picked up 25 inches of rain in that week.
In 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah. So luckily it was the first, I think ground started pretty dry before that. If we had that in midwinter after we'd already had a bunch of wet weather, this would have been a tremendous flood. And there was a lot of damage. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but White River, Highway 35, total washout from the White River Canyon, because up there on Mount Hood, we had a glacier that was uncovered, no real snow had fallen yet that season. And then, 5, 8, 10, 15, 20 inches of rain falls on that snow. And so we had a glacial outburst flood. This area does have a history of that. But that is the Highway 35 overpass, a picture from ODOT that year. And look how the rocks are just stacked up, tons and tons of rocks. The foundations of the bridge were washed away. Portions of the highway were also washed out on the north side of Highway 35 north of Mount Hood Meadows. So Mount Hood Meadows was cut off for a month.
Wow.
They could not open.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah. And in fact, this was Thanksgiving. I think this was a Thanksgiving weekend. I remember grabbing this picture. Snow, what you're seeing here is all the buses from Mount Hood Meadows parked. There's snow up to the windows. So there's probably 5 feet of snow on the ground. And they can't go anywhere. And nobody can get there really because the highway is closed. ODOT worked really hard. Even now, when you go on Highway 35, if you're when you're coming up from the Hood River side, that whole last kind of straight stretch, you can see so much work on each side where they just put in huge diversion channels there, tons of rock work. And let's see, do I have this? Yeah, this is, I got to give Drew Jackson, who we used to work here, credit. He put this presentation together. I'm grabbing these graphics from him. This is back to our local AMS chapter. And what you see is the largest observed Mount Hood debris flows over the last, 40 years or so. And you see, 1 million cubic yards of debris came down on the White River in 2006. But there's a history of these debris flows coming down from these glaciers. That's just what happens in mountains, all right, all around the world. 2000, there had been a big one on the White River. But notice they tend to be November. Oh, they all are. November or September, October, November.
Yeah.
1 December. September, October,
that one in 1980, does it surprise you? I remember a bunch of these.
Not at all.
No. 1980, Christmas flood, 1980. I remember driving from Mount Angel, where I grew up, and then we drove up to Portland, and there was just water all over the place. And that washed out Highway 35. I think somebody died there along Highway 35. Wow. I think it washed out 2 bridges in the Hood River Valley. So there is a history of these events along the White River. But yeah, that 2000 flood was something else. So we don't see anything like that coming up. As I stop my graphics here, I'm going to take a look at I've got some 500 millibar maps for you. But I can't really think and talk at the same time. So talk amongst yourselves. Did you notice anything? Let's see. Yesterday, we were looking at maps yesterday, Katie. And yeah, there's just not a whole lot going on, right? Kind of quiet.
The only thing that stood out to me is we talked about a split system and a potential for a cutoff low, which we've talked about before. That cutoff low weather person woes, because those are tricky.
Oh, nice. Well played.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the models have been all over the place since I've been back with it'll rain Saturday, it'll rain Sunday, no, it'll rain Monday, no, it'll rain Tuesday, no, it's gonna be Saturday. Like it just feels like everything is just kind of going, we can't come together, on this one. So it's a tricky system.
We can come together. Here's my segue. We can come together and say we don't see any snow at the lower elevations, right?
Yeah.
True. Yes.
You do see this graphic, right? You're seeing the earliest snowfall.
Earliest snow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, earliest snow in Portland. Officially at the airport, the earliest we've had measurable snow is November 11th. So that would be, I don't know
2
what it
days.
is today.
Today's
the 9th.
Man, time is flying. Okay. Yeah, on the 9th. So, the records there go back to 1940. Now, downtown Portland, weather records go back much further in time, back to the late 1800s. And there was 0.6 inch on October 29th, 1935. So there was a little bit of snow. And I think both Salem and somebody else in the metro also had snow that day, or within a day or two of that. It was a real cool system that came through. So someday I suppose that could happen.
If it was an El Nino or La Nina?
No idea.
We should check
so
that
the
out.
Quick answer there is no.
That would be
I don't know offhand.
Yeah, we should. I'm curious about that now, because we talked about when we were doing all the El Nino, La Nina talks, is that when we're in the El Nino, most of our weather happens in the beginning part of the season as the system, as the jet stream is splitting. So if I was to guess, I would say those were El Nino years because it was so early.
Could be. Although some Novembers are kind of quiet in El Nino years. We'll see how this one plays out. Okay, so hardcore. Here's a 500 millibar map. You're looking at just these are the heights around 18,000 feet, and the warmer colors are higher heights. The cooler colors are lower heights, and we kind of have, you can see my little hand, right, moving through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So we have a weak trough. This is the forecast for this evening, 10 p.m. this evening. So yeah, there's a little weak trough passing through. We got some rain for your Thursday evening, Friday morning. But then after that, let's go to, so we got a little bit of rain today.
Last night.
Yeah, and tomorrow, that's from last night.
It is. Okay, I was going to say, it looks exactly like it did last night.
It is the graphic from last night. I wasn't going to get up that early. And then this is,
See,
so
there
then,
it is. Sorry, I got excited.
Katie, yes. Katie, do you have something to share?
Potential
No, you're on the
low.
wrong. You're on the
Katie
wrong
in the
graphic.
back.
It was the one before it.
You've raised your hand. Okay. So then this is Sunday, like school teacher. This is Sunday, and you see a much deeper trough approaching, right? Look how impressive it looks like. Ooh, this is headed towards us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Monday night. Look at that. Look at what's going on here. So it's not coming in as a full trough early next week. It's splitting and going down here. That's what we call sometimes a split flow. All right. So do I have all the way to next Thursday? That is Tuesday. Do I have Thursday? I do not. No, I brought everything to a halt. Sorry, I only went through Monday. But the point is we see this split flow, which means this thing is that upper level trough is on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, headed towards California. They're looking for their first rain event of the season, which is good for them, right? Kind of ends their fire season chance. And so when we get this split flow, we tend to, as Katie alluded to, it's really tough to forecast because if a strong system is kind of approaching and then it rips apart or reforms down to the south, models are going to have issues with how much rain we're going to get. When does the rain show up? Oops, does it go more into California first and delays it by a day or half a day here? I do know in this pattern, we tend to get very weak systems always. We don't get big, impressive rainfalls in this setup. And that seems to be the pattern through, what's today? We're recording this on Thursday the 9th. So it seems to be the pattern through at least, like the 17th, 18th, that next weekend. So that's why we think it'll be pretty quiet coming up here for the next week and a half. I just don't see anything too impressive showing up on the maps.
We kind of get like when they cut off like that, like the wraparound, which I kind of like.
Right.
Like into like a garden hose where you're just kind of waving it and the water just kind of lands where it will. It's hard to predict where it's going to land, but you know it's coming and you know it's scattered, but how much and where and when, that's the hard part to figure out.
That's a good analogy. I have another one is leftovers are never as good as the real thing, which actually Riel, our anchor, and I were talking last night. That's not always true, but
I was going to say sometimes that's not true.
Yeah. So the analogy is that, California gets the brunt of the rain, and then we just kind of get the leftovers. Sometimes we get in a southerly flow, and we just get leftover light showers. So yeah, that's not as good. And we don't get real systems in this case if most of the action is going into the south. But you're right. I was saying I made this great clam chowder once, or any sort of soup. Usually the flavors blend, and the second day it's better. So you're right.
I feel that way about potato salad. You need to let your potato salad sit for a day so those flavors can,
Agree. So here's the anomaly for the next 10 days from the GFS. This is from last night's run. You haven't seen this yet unless you got up really early.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but I saved this one. And you can see a 10-day anomaly of precip, QPF, which includes snow, of course, and below average in Oregon and Washington, above average in California. That's the GFS. This is the GEM model. Same thing. Look at that. Really dry to the north or drier than normal? Actually, nobody's dry in this case. Just drier than normal because typically we're pretty wet up here and drier in California. California, wetter than normal. And the Euro. Euro's, does this go out? Yeah. I said 10 days. That's not true. This is 15 days.
It says 15 right there, QPF.
A little more mixed here on the Euro because there's a lot of rain early on here in the 15-day period in Canada. A little drier than normal in the Northwest, a little wetter than normal in California. So kind of a mix. The point
Bottom line of all that is everybody gets something, but it's less for us and more for California. That's kind of like the common thread.
Right.
That's the trend. Yep.
Yeah. So yesterday we did our first ski and snowboard forecast, or temperatures at. You know what? This graphic is incorrect. It says timberline temps. Usually I have that as those are government camp temperature forecasts that I put in there. That's fine, just to subtract a few degrees. But yeah, so we just, in this setup, we're not going to get significant snow in the Cascades, at least for now, for the next 8 days or so. So through the end of next week. So clearly we're not going to have skiing this weekend. But that would be unusual anyway on the, 10th, 11th, and 12th. But could we get snow, skiing started on what would that be? The 18th, 19th, right in there, that next weekend of the month, the weekend before Thanksgiving? I think that's very unlikely as well.
When does Timberline typically open? I know at Bachelor they usually try and open the day after Thanksgiving.
Bachelor seems more like a standard kind of destination resort. I've noticed they always aim for Thanksgiving, like they give that date. The other ski areas are going to open as soon as they have enough snow and as soon as they can get the employees there. So
Gotcha.
If we would have had 2 feet of snow last week, ski areas would have been open this weekend, or at least partially open. If we would have had 3 feet of snow, like right around, if this would have been all snow, all this precipitation, we had 3 feet, I can guarantee you Meadows and Timberline and maybe Ski Bowl would have had at least some terrain open, because the deal is they will open as soon as they have snow, because the excitement is there. Whereas when there's 10 feet of snow on the ground in late April and it's partly cloudy, the excitement it doesn't go away totally, but people have had their fun and they're ready to move on to spring. So they really want to get going as soon as they can. I think that's kind of the big message with those ski areas. Yeah. So I don't see a setup for that. I'm gonna line up my other graphics here because I got just a few more. Or is that it? Actually, that's my last graphic. What's on the list here?
The weather term.
Is it
weather
time?
term. It is
time. Wait, let me get this here. All right, here we go. So we're going to do 2 weather terms of the week. One of these you already know, so let's just do it. So the weather term of the week is stratiform. 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 One word. It's having extensive, I'm just going to read the glossary of meteorology definition here. It's having extensive horizontal development, horizontal, not vertical, as opposed to the more vertical development that is characteristic of convection. Convection is like when the air is rising, the big puffy clouds, and we can get downpours out of that, thunderstorms. Stratiform clouds cover large areas but show relatively little vertical development. So stratiform precipitation, rain or snow, in general, is relatively continuous and uniform in intensity, i.e. steady rain versus showers. Stratiform clouds would be very kind of flat, boring clouds. Like that would be what would be coming in this afternoon ahead of that weather system, stratiform clouds. The clouds we had when we had those downpours when we had the downpours over the weekend, we had great vertical development and the radar looks much more intense. Maybe a good way to think of it is, and I got this from a coworker 20-something years ago, stratiform precipitation would be like wall-to-wall carpeting, covers everything, but can be boring. And non-stratiform or like convection would be more like showers, which is more like I've got a hard surface here and there's little throw rugs.
Right.
You like?
That's nice. Yeah. A little home decor reference there.
Yeah. Any stratiform thoughts here? We got any?
I think that was a good term because I remember Monday night when things were kind of just meh instead of being exciting.
Yeah.
The text from you, Mark, was it's been so stratiform.
And you're like, what?
I was so nerdy. I was like, but I knew what you meant. It's just, nice. It's just kind of the typical rain that we always see. So yeah.
Yeah, we weren't getting the convection, that big up and down motion. We were getting some, but it just wasn't that impressive, and it was more stratiformy. Stratiformy, I'm sure is not
stratiformy.
A word. Okay, you ready for the second one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, second one is, this is not an official term, but it came up the other night during the newscast. Gully washer.
Oh.
Have you ever heard that term?
I have.
Yes.
You have heard the term. This is funny because Nora Hart, God bless Nora Hart, she's like the sweetest thing. And she said, Gully washer, she'd never heard that term. And she had even spent time in Texas. I don't mean like in a prison. She didn't do time. She was in Texas and she was 2 years in Amarillo. Oh no, Lubbock. No. What's the other place where they herd up the cattle? Amarillo,
I don't know. I'm
Lubbock.
Distracted because now I'm picturing like a hardened Nora Hart in like a prison uniform. God,
Orange. Anyway, she spent time down there. Abilene. That's where she spent 2 years. She's from here. She goes, I've never heard that term. So gully washer just means big downpour. It's a short, heavy rainstorm. I will use it. It's just kind of just a kind of a, what's the term? It's a sort of, I don't want to say anecdotal. It's just kind of a homespun term.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, when I think of gully washer, I think of like a gully, like a drain or something, and it's washing it out.
Right.
It's like a big rain,
big burst of it, and then it's over.
done. Yeah, so you're just kind of cleaning things out, and then you're done. It's not like a
washes out the gully. Yeah, when I looked it up, it says it's a regional, kind of a Midwest or Western USA thing.
Yeah.
It can be used in slang. It said people or things that come from the street could be like you're tough, you're rugged, you're gangsta, or you might be gully.
Oh.
I've never heard that, but
Wait,
so
gully
you
is
know-
supposed to mean as in like tough or not tough?
tough, hard.
Oh,
Yep.
gully.
On the street. I guess so. That's I read it there.
I believe
So
you. I
that's
just
not a
don't
weather
know that.
term in that case.
I don't know that I'd use that in that context.
Well, I don't think
Mel,
I'll be
you're
using
so
that on the air
gully.
either. It's so gully.
So gully.
Anyway, so that's your 2 weather terms of the weekend, and I don't have anything else. I mean, I guess it's time to wrap things up. We've had fun. We've got kind of a boring week ahead. We'll be joining you again later next week for our pre-Thanksgiving podcast. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
We'll get to recap how this split system worked for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how we'll talk about the split system. That was exciting. All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. Thanks both to Katie Zuniga and Camilla Ortiz. Thank you very much. We're gonna have a great time the next few days looking at those split flow systems. And thank you for joining us. Don't forget, you can either get it. You can go on our webpage and look at the visual, we have the audio form, which is what I listen to, and of course we have the video form on our webpage. Just go to the weather section, and it's kind of a second link down there. So have a great day, and we'll see you later.
So stop your waiting and hesitating and tell us, please tell us